Hello there, my name is Dan and I'm a very keen home grower of fruit and vegetables here in Essex, UK. And the main purpose of my channel is to show people how to get into growing fruit and vegetables if indeed they wish to, and if you would like to, please feel free to like, share and subscribe. And you can also check me out on Dan_Home Gardens on Instagram if indeed you are interested. So today I'm going to be talking about two subjects. The first one is a swift first early potato reveal, and the other is food security and potatoes. So these two subjects, they do interlink a little bit. So let's have a look at the potatoes that I've revealed. Now, variety swift, first early, I set them probably about 8 to 9 weeks ago, something like that, when everything kicked off, shall we use that term. Now, you can see just how beautiful these spuds look. Look absolutely tasty and delicious, and you think about how many meals you could get out of that if you really wanted to. Now, you can see I'm running quite an extensive potato project here. I've got first early, second early, salad potatoes and main crop, all different varieties. I've got Desiree, Duke of York, Swift, Jazzy, Willia and King Edward. Yep, so quite a nice variety of different potatoes here. So a few years ago I moved away from the idea of growing things like potatoes, and that was very erroneous thinking on my part. And you know why I moved away from it? Because I had the attitude of, well, they're very cheap to buy down the shop, aren't they? Which, now I think about it, I'm absolutely appalled at my way of thinking, and I would not have thought 10 odd years ago I'd never been thinking like that, but I was moving towards that way of thinking, which I think in many ways is a modern way of thinking, because potatoes are such an important thing for sustaining. They've sustained civilizations for millennia, and they're beautiful tasting, incredibly versatile, and they grow incredibly well in the UK climate generally. So there we go. Now, of course, what I went and did was looked on the internet at the figures for imported food here into the UK, and the figure came up about 48%. I just plugged it into Google, how much of UK food is imported. You can do the same if you wish, and the figure 48% came up. Now, that means only 52% of food consumed in the UK is grown here. So if you think about that, that leaves us in a very potentially weak position for many reasons. Now look what happened a while ago with all the panic buying in the supermarkets and all that jazz. There we go. In fact, I've got a variety of potato here called Jazzy. I don't know if I said that earlier, but there we go. Look what happened, and suddenly things like potatoes became, rather hard to get hold of in many cases, and people were reaching for tin potatoes, they were reaching for bags of potatoes. There we go. But of course, if you went back 50, 60 years, maybe not even now, I bet you many people had loads of spuds growing away in their garden. A bit like what I've got here, and they weren't even thinking about the thing of like, oh well, they're cheap to buy. They were thinking of food security and feeding their family. So there we are. Now, very obviously, we can't grow all food here, because we can't, because things like, what do you call them, bananas, coconuts, mangoes, jackfruit, so many other things, we just don't have the climate to grow here unless we simulate it, and that wouldn't be cost effective, I know that. But the figure that I put up is, if everyone who could grows 5% of their own food, that would make a massive difference. Now, another thing that's got to be considered, so in the late 90s, when I was 14 years old, in the year 1999, I worked on a strawberry farm, well, a fruit farm actually, and later on I worked on a potato farm where they also grew other root crops and things like that. So the subject of farmland being sold for building is a very big subject indeed, and you've got to think the amount of work that people have to go through in order to bring a punnet of strawberries to the table. It's quite a lot. It's very tempting for farmers to sell their land for building or for whatever reason, and you've got to think about this, the complexity of running a farm, something like that, and I wouldn't imagine there's a particularly high amount of money in it as opposed to what there would be for selling acres of land for building. So you've got to think, if we don't buy locally produced food, if we don't support our local orchards, our local veg growers, whatever, they're going to disappear, and that figure of 48% might end up higher. So this is not an alarmist video. In fact, it's the opposite. Basically, if you put your grandfather's head on or your grandmother's head on, or some older person that you know, have a chat to them about how much food they grew when they were a child, and you'd be probably quite surprised with just how much they managed to grow themselves. So basically, what I'm saying is grow what you can, give it a go, even if it's 5 or 6 buckets of homegrown potatoes. If things went wrong, you'd be very, very grateful for them. If they don't go wrong and you've just got a lovely load of homegrown vegetables, fruit, whatever, you can just savour and enjoy the taste of something you've grown yourself. Hard day's work, finish work, go home, have some homegrown produce. How about that then, hey? So there we go, that's enough talking for today. I think you understand where I'm coming from, and that is basically grow as much of your own food as you're able to, if you want to, of course, and support local business that is doing the same. If you like my work, please feel free to like, share and subscribe. Thank you for listening. Dan_Home Gardens on Instagram. See you next time.